Welcome back, football fans. It is Saturday the 16th of March, a big day of football ahead. Good morning if you're watching this Saturday morning. We're going to be taking a look at a few games here today, and one of the things that I wanted to focus on is second half goals, and we will create a quick filter based around that. We'll start with one game as well here from Italy, and I actually found this using Copilot, which someone asked, what is it? They can see it in the videos. I'm just going to show you now. You can click on it at any time, and it will give you a synopsis of an upcoming game. We can see this game. It looks like it's from Poland in 11 hours. Both teams likely to score, it says. And then it gives you a bit of a description on the game. And then it gives a prediction based on the probability model as well. So we can see home win is the sort of overall prediction for this game. And you can click next and it will go away, get some more data, analyze the data, and bring it back to you. So we've got a game here in 32 hours this time. And again, the prediction is a home win. You can click into the game and access it just like that. So the 60% there you can see, and we can do an AI fixture simulation on this one as well. 2-0 home victory. Let's see how that one goes from Spain. We mentioned second half goals, and it was Copilot that gave me a tip for second half goals. Just check out this if you want sort of thing for this game. Como versus Pisa. I've been to Pisa. I didn't get to go to Lake Como, unfortunately. Beautiful place if you've not seen it before or been. Pisa. Nice place as well, but quite small, and everyone sort of just goes for the same thing when you're around that tower and everybody's just taking pictures. It's a crazy thing. People are there for hours just going like this. Everyone is doing this. Everyone must walk out with severe wrist pain. So poor jokes aside, we'll start with the timing data for this one because it was, a suggestion for second half goals, and we can see that in terms of second half goals, both teams have scored more. It's a bit narrower in terms of the averages for the home team. They've scored 13 second half goals compared to 9. 6 for Pisa away from home, 0.43 that as an average. But in terms of goals conceded as well, they really don't concede many in the first half. 5 and 5, 0.36 for both of these teams. Compared to the second half, there is a bit of a jump. It is pretty much double, isn't it? Now, in terms of scoring in the second half, I would say, without looking at the goal tab yet, that these two are not the most prolific goal scorers in general, and certainly true for Pisa and for Como, Lake Como. Is it called Lake Como or just Como? 1.57, and they've conceded just 1.07. So this could be a tight game, to be honest. If we go down as well, BTTS is quite low. Clean sheets are relatively high. 36%, I would say, is decent without looking at their league position, which is 4th and 8th. So in terms of how many games these have lost, just 14%. Goal difference is positive for Como. It is exactly 0 for Pisa. So, I mean, this could be a tight game. I'm thinking unders and potentially a second half goal, although the last 3 games we see there have ended with 3 or more goals being scored. If we just take a look at the goals scored at home recently, they have been scoring, certainly no trouble really. 2 games there where they fired blanks since, all season in Serie B. And in terms of goals conceded, they have conceded in the majority, but there are a few clean sheets in there. And for Pisa, away from home, they kept a clean sheet in the previous game. But before that, as we can see, it is a row of red in terms of goals conceded, over 2.5 goals for them. It's a bit more patchy. I still think this one looks like it could be a tight game. Just 1 defeat in the last 5 for them, and that came to Parma, who are top of the table. And in terms of Como, we'll just take a look at their form as well. Similar form. They're in good positions, these teams. The head-to-head shows that BTTS has landed in every game since 2021, so that could be interesting. Could we see a 1-1 draw here? Given that this could be a tight game, the first half might be a bit edgy, which again leads us into second half goals. Let's jump to Bet365 and take a look at some of the markets available. So half with most goals over evens, quite like the look of that. We will just continue to take a look at some of these markets here. So potentially under 4 goals, 1.22, maybe not worth it. So you can see another option I think potentially is over 1 goals and over 0 goals in the second half, 1.53. You could then maybe find another game to pair this with. So the 2 options for you. I mean, you can completely change this. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, the shill by now. Any comment is automatically entered into a draw to win OddAlerts Pro. And in a minute, we're going to use quick filters, which is a massive feature in OddAlerts Pro, and you'll see the power of it. So get your comments in. Let me know what you think about this game. I think for me, I would probably take the single of half with most goals second half, and maybe we'll come across some other games that fit this market, this outcome for today, Saturday the 16th of March. So the two options for me potentially there, over 1.5 goals and a goal in second half, and then pair that as a double with something else. Or you just take the second half most goals straight up, because we saw that these teams are pretty good defensively in the first half, given that it's a tight game, given the situation of the last couple of games for the away team. They haven't scored a goal in those two defeats, whereas the home team is coming into this in better form, certainly seeing more goals in their games. That's why I wouldn't go with the under, even though the probability model is suggesting it. It's not exactly a value bet, because I think Bet365 is also on the same level there. They have pretty similar odds, as do most bookmakers. I think the peak odds for unders in this game is 1.67. So will it go the way of the model and of the bookmakers, or will there be more than 2 goals in this game? I think I could see a 1-1. I could see a tight game, given the history, given the recent form and whatnot. But I'm going to go with Copilot on this one and focus on second half goals. So over evens for most goals being scored in the second half of this game. For this next section, I'm going to put up on screen an image of a tweet that's gone out this morning. It might not have even gone out yet, depending on what time you're watching this video. And it says 65% rating for the probability model in terms of over 2.5 goals. Both teams have conceded at least 2 goals in 6 of the last 10 games. Points per game for both teams is 0.9 or higher. Both teams have scored in 70% or more of all games this season, and we can see that the games, or some of the games, a couple of the games that were from that filter are here. And I just wanted to show you one of them here from England, 3 p.m. today, because this one has decent odds, I think, at 1.5 in terms of pairing it with something else. Hungerford Town against Tiverton Town, and we can see overall the points per game for Tiverton Town is 1. Away from home, it drops to 0.88, where they have conceded quite a few goals. We've got negative goal difference of 11. No nil-nils at home this season for Hungerford. Clean sheet in just 18% of games. It is 12% for the away team. BTTS or over 2.5 goals landing in 76% of all games when you're looking at home form against away form for these two teams. And over 2.5 goals, 65% and 71%. So the model, we were looking in that quick filter that it had to be over 65%, and this one is just over 65%. And we can do a simulation, and we get a 2-1 home victory. It is 8th hosting 20th, and that would be nice, wouldn't it, for over 2.5 goals. As I say, the odds when I first looked at it were 1.5. I'm wondering if they could have potentially dropped. Let's check out BTTS as well, 1.44. So yeah, the bookie's really expecting goals in this game. 1.5, as high as 1.6 with Nordic Bet. So that is another potential option for you today in terms of putting doubles together. And the second game from that quick filter, that shortlist, was this one from Qatar. And I saved it to my favourites within the context of over 2.5 goals, but I think alerts will need to be set. The data is very good for this one. Over 2.5 goals landing in every single home game for Al Ahly, and that is 7 out of 7 so far. They've lost 86% of home games, so we'll just take a look at the form at home for them this season, and we can see they've lost all but one game. They are conceding 2 or more goals in every single home game this season. So of course, over 2.5 goals looking very, very likely, and we can see that the odds for that are peaking at 1.38. So that is where the alerts come into things, really. And if we want to set an alert on the odds for goals or BTTS, we can do that. I'll go 1.8 for BTTS. And then for over 2.5 goals, let's do the same, shall we? 1.8. And hopefully they trigger in play. That is 6:30 today, Saturday the 16th. So I also mentioned second half goals, and we will create a quick filter now for that. So we're going to qualify that all teams have played 10 games, and this is off the cuff. As I said, the Italian game for second half goals came from Copilot. So I didn't create a filter for this already, but I'm going to just have a think about some of the things we could potentially add in here. And I guess maybe we can add in the first half goals probability model value and put this to, let's say, 35% maximum. And then we can go back to the home teams, and we can actually filter for half with most goals, which is quite a nice thing to be able to filter when that is a market that you are particularly interested in. And first, actually, we'll add over 0.5 second half goals, and we can say in the last 10 games, we can go 100. We could just go 100. Last 10 games, both of these teams, and we'll hit search at this point just because you want to, okay, no games. You want to see where these rules land you. So if we put this to 70 for both of these teams, it remembers that it's tied to both of them. Now we get some more games in. In fact, it's still a short list, isn't it, in terms of the amount of games? But that's what you want, guys. You don't want to be looking at 50, 60 games every day. And this is what Quick Filters is all about. We've just narrowed down so many fixtures. This is a Saturday, so we've narrowed down literally thousands of games in a matter of seconds based on something we are looking for. It's important when you come into Quick Filters always to have an outcome in mind. So within the context of second half goals, you could maybe have an outcome of most goals being scored in the second half, and that is something we can add into the mix in terms of the rules here. So let's find it. I could probably organise these rules better, and I probably will in the future. Most goals second half percentage, always important to be working with percentages, occurrences rather than averages. I stress that quite a lot. And for this one, we'll just leave it as overall for both teams, and we'll say let's say 50%, because I think 50% from what I've seen is obviously quite high. We'll search. It could kill a lot of those games. We do get one still from Ethiopia. So if we take this down to, let's say, 45, does that bring in some more games? Was it close? Not really. So this is how you would just tweak and adapt filters. We will take a look at this game as well in a moment. I'm just trying to see where that threshold was. If we go to 35, which is a pretty even split, given it can be a tie, we then get the majority of those games back. So let's take a look at a few games, and we'll start with that Ethiopian game. 14th hosting 3rd. Now, just jumping to Bet365, the first thing we notice is that the half with most goals is not offered. Even if you jump into here, you don't get the option to sort of select halves and stuff, and that's they're just managing their risk. But it doesn't mean you can't enter this game for the markets you want. When this game starts, I'm sure more markets will be added as the game progresses, and then you can start, looking at second half goals in play. And just using the odds comparison tool, we can see that it is available with 1xBet and Betway. So this is actually available if you wanted to go and take it. So we'll take a look at the data as well. We see that this home team is winless. They've lost 63% of games. The away team has lost just 13% of games. So again, you're sort of building a picture of the game whilst you use quick filters based on your initial context of second half goals, of course. You then build up other possibilities as you maybe set alerts for the game, maybe then look at the latest odds as we have. And if we look at their home form, they are winless, as we saw. And something else that sticks out is that the lack of goals from both teams. There hasn't been more than 3 goals since the 25th of October, and we can see that it is just one game out of all of their home games. And interestingly, the last couple of games they've won. Sorry, they haven't won, but they were over 2.5 goals, because we were on the over 2.5 goals section. I don't know if that's going to be confusing for people. Let me know, give me feedback. I made it color coded, but again, you could, as I just did, forget that you're in that mode for a second and then think, oh, they've won the last couple of games. Let me know if that's something you're doing. Maybe I can turn it into ticks or something and keep the results always consistent. You don't need to hear any of this, but if you've got any feedback, let us know. So in terms of the timing data, they've won no games by half-time at home. They have not scored a first half goal this season at home. If we look at the away form, they've scored 4. This team just don't score goals, especially in the first half. They're starting slow. Second half, they scored 3. They're just terrible, to be honest. And should I try and pronounce the name? Shashmene Kanema versus Kadus Gigoris. I actually had some Ethiopian food once. It was really nice. Big plate, bring the big massive plate to you on the table, and then everyone just sort of chips in. You eat with your hands as well, which is interesting. I think things taste better when you eat with your hand, that's for sure. And actually, the away team are unbeaten at half-time away from home, but they too, you know, they've scored just 6. And if you look at the overall form, 0.67 compared to 1.12. So half with most goals if you can get it. That would be fantastic. If not, maybe you can set an alert. And if this game does start slow, you could maybe then be looking at over 0.5 goals, over 1.5 goals, or maybe the away win, to be honest. The probability model, I would expect, 1.44 implied odds. And what are the odds for an actual an away victory here? 1.92 peak. It's quite a jump, isn't it, from 1.5 with Tipico. So definitely value there if you can get on at that price. The away win opened at 1.8 but soon dropped, and I'm not surprised. Same with Pinnacle, opened at 1.66, which is a bit closer but still value in terms of what OddAlerts thinks will happen in this game. And again, you can see 1xBet, they're all dropping their odds as the money comes in for this game and for this away team. So yeah, let us know what you think about that one. There are some other games here. What I will do is share this shortlist in the comments of this video or in the description, so just check that. I will create it right now. Joe's second half goals filter for Saturday. Saturday 7. Now, if that last section was about being disciplined and quick filters and following systems and rules and bet tracking, as you should be doing, all of those things, this section is a bit more fun, a bit more laid back. It relies more on my own biases and knowledge and, you know, thoughts on these teams. I mean, for instance, Luton Forest, I want Luton to win, right? Those other two teams we just looked at, couldn't tell you the names, even now, 30 seconds later. And that's why people love value betting so much, and why it is so successful for a lot of people, because it is more about the data, it is more about the probability, it is more about the value. It's all about those things. Bet tracking, getting a proper system set up. Just as an aside, a quick plug, if you go to the value bets page, you can start creating your filters. You can go to the downloads page and get all the CSV data from the probability model, and you can quickly work out profitability for the last 2 years, right? And then you can see what has worked. You can work out your different yields. You can see what would have happened if you'd been putting this as a unit versus that, only taking games over 2.5 odds, 3 odds. It's completely up to you. And if you've got any questions about that, or you know, you want to see something else on the probability model, there's more markets coming soon, especially for corners, especially for first half goals and outcomes as well. Still working on it. It is coming soon. So yeah, quick plug for value betting in general, which again, it's, you know, it is long term, it's disciplined, it's sensible, and as people in the Discord are experiencing, it will get you restricted because they don't want you to profit. So if you've got brokers in your country as well, or if you can get bets on the exchange, then that is also recommended, because Bet365, for example, they'll ban you pretty quickly. They'll restrict your bets as soon as you start, you know, clearly betting on value and winning and taking money from them. So now on to the Premier League, and I spoke about my biases before in Luton Town hosting Forest. This is a huge game for Luton Town, because in recent weeks they just reminded me of Blackpool, my own team. They remind me of Blackpool so much this season, taking the lead, really going at teams. We went down with 39 points, and I looked before. It took me a while, but in the 12 seasons since, we would have stayed up. 12 out of 12 seasons since we went down with 39 points, we would have stayed up. We were 2-0 up against United. We were 3-1 up at Everton. We were 2-0 up at Bolton and Blackburn. There's been other games. We were leading away at Tottenham within like 10 minutes of the game ending, and we won none of those games that I've just mentioned. And there was more as well. We beat Liverpool away. We just didn't care, and I think Luton are playing every game like it could be their last in terms of Premier League, and that's how Blackpool played, really. And the other two teams, they're gone, aren't they? In terms of Sheffield United and Burnley, I think they're long gone. But this game is huge, as I said, for Luton Town, and I do think they will do it. I think they're due a win. As I said, this section, you know, the cliches come out, the biases come out, but they have been scoring goals. And if we just look at the data recently in terms of BTTS, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of the last 7 games at home, scoring is not the issue. It really isn't. They've only failed to score once, and that was against Spurs. So I think Luton will score in this game. What do you think? How many goals will there be? Will they get this win? Will they get this win, and can they stay up? I personally would love to see it. I would absolutely love to see Luton stay in the league because, as I said, they remind me of my own team, Blackpool. Rob Edwards, the manager, used to play for Blackpool, and he was part of that squad just sort of before we made the run to the Prem. But he was certainly part of that dressing room, which had a lot of spirit and didn't care really. Holloway, as the manager, embodied it. So for Forest, 3 defeats on the bounce away from home, 1 victory since the 2nd of September, which was against Chelsea, where they just sat back. They got the goal, then they sat back, and that can happen sometimes away at those grounds, but I don't think they're going to be able to do that today against Luton. I hope they won't, because it'll be a very boring game if both teams play like that. But I think Luton will take the game to them, and I'm confident that they'll get a win. And you know why? Because I picked them in my last man standing group this weekend. 2.8. Let me know what you think about that one. Burnley, Brentford, and then Fulham, Tottenham. Interesting game, that one. Fulham, Tottenham. Fulham have been in decent goal-scoring form, I believe. Again, this is just from what my brain is telling me without looking at the data. We'll take a look at the data. So they've scored, Fulham, in every game since the end of January. Fired blanks against Everton and Chelsea in succession. But since then, it is looking pretty good, isn't it? And I think they will be playing without fear. Marco Silva's on about renewing his contract at the minute. It's all smiles, especially at the top end of the pitch at the minute. I can't remember his name, but he's scoring goals now, isn't he, for Fulham, in the absence of another striker that can do it. I think Gyökeres, wow, I don't know why teams didn't buy him in the summer. Could have got him for 20 million like Sporting did, and he's absolutely tearing up in Portugal, as everybody knew he would. Anybody that watches the Championship, like I did for the past, whatever many years Blackpool were in it, he is amazing. He is amazing. He could have definitely made the step up to the Premier League. And now, a team like Fulham, a team like Palace, a team like Wolves that should have 100% been going in for him is now going to miss out on him completely. They could have been the one taking him this season and then profiting, because now he's going to step above them. He's just going to go straight past them. So smart move from Gyökeres, and that's no disrespect to Sporting Lisbon either. But I do think Tottenham, someone like that, could approach Gyökeres this summer, maybe get him in. I think he is well within his rights to wait for a team of that ilk. Leverkusen, someone like this could come in and get him, to be honest. So that was a bit of a rant, but let's have a look at the odds for this one. BTTS and over 2.5 goals, I think, would be the obvious choice for many, many punters in this game. So we've got 1.51 for BTTS. Tottenham, it was 1.33, wasn't it, in their previous game for BTTS, and it did not land away at Villa. Villa really not performing in that game, though. Ollie Watkins not doing much either when he got the ball. I think for Villa, without Kamara, they've looked a different team, certainly conceding a lot of goals. And for Tottenham, in terms of scoring goals, yeah, they're on fire, aren't they? They've scored in every single game in the Premier League this season, and you expect that to continue as they, get all their players back and they find their form again. No Van der Ven, which just probably pumps up the odds of BTTS in my mind a little bit more. Without him, they're not as good. Simple as that. So here's a quick double. You can see I've got some bet credits there. Yay! I think a game got incorrectly labelled or something. It said 0-0 and the score was actually like 2-1 or whatever. Didn't give me the actual winnings. They just said, oh, we did something wrong. All right. Okay, that's bookies. BTTS in Fulham, Tottenham, and Luton to get a win. 4s on Bet365 for that double. You can, of course, shop around, and you can, of course, tell me that I'm an idiot. Let me know in the comments what you think about that one. Now, finally, we'll take a look at the probability model for the Championship, and we can see the highest game for BTTS is Sunderland QPR 1.63. Let's take a look at this one. And first, we'll take a look at the odds to see, is it a value bet? That's 1.63 implied odds and 1.91 with 188 bet. Do like this. We all know about the form recently of QPR. The form of Sunderland, by the way. Wow. I did not know that Sunderland were in that kind of form. That is terrible, isn't it? I don't know they sacked Beale, but They really should have just kept Mowbray by the looks of things. I know it was inconsistent, but now at least they are consistent, but just in the wrong way. 6 defeats in a row is not good. And looking at the teams they have lost to, they are teams that they would want to be able to beat if they did get to the playoffs, right? Southampton, Leicester, Norwich, Swansea 18th, Birmingham 18th, of course, Huddersfield Town 21st. So it's not great, whichever way you look at it. QPR, they did go unbeaten for 4 games and then lost at home to Middlesbrough. A surprise slightly for me in that game that they did not score. In terms of goals scored, they have scored in the majority of games. They've failed to score in just 2 games this year. So BTTS here. And what I like about the poor form of Sunderland coming into this is that this is a home game for Sunderland. The fans will be demanding that this comes to an end now against QPR. Fair enough, you've had some tough games, Norwich, Leicester, Southampton. They scored twice against Southampton, which is a good sign coming into this one, especially for BTTS. At home, they failed to score against Leicester, failed to score against Hull, failed to score against Coventry. But as you can see, they are scoring still in the majority of games at home. So BTTS 1.91 there for that one. That is quite a nice one. And I think throughout this video now, we have got some good selections for Saturday. But I want to hear your selections as well. What games are you on for Saturday? It could be English games. It could be games in the Bundesliga. It is completely up to you. And just because I mentioned the Bundesliga, then let's end there. And we've got some games here. We can see the away win for the probability model, 73%. It is, of course, Bayern Munich. Let's take a look at their away form, because BTTS for them is quite common at the moment. Away from home, they've conceded 2 or more goals in the last 3 games. Quite crazy. If we look at all competitions, they are just conceding goals away from home. Will it continue? That's the question you've got to ask for this game. And I guess we could get a look at the home team and see that they are in terrible form. Absolutely dreadful form. That is terrible, isn't it? They've conceded 8 goals in the last couple of games, scoring none. Bayern Munich to win this game, surely the odds are, absolutely minuscule. So maybe for this one you would look into possibly BTTS as a value bet. BTTS is 1.91, but I wouldn't personally play it given how bad the home team is at this moment. And Bayern Munich coming into this on the back of an 8-1 win and a very important 3-0 victory. I think these recent results have really built confidence. 2-1 might have been the turning point against Leipzig because it was very late in the day how that came about. And since then, obviously, they've continued to score. The Freiburg game, they'll be kicking themselves, of course. But 8-1 against Mainz, who are 17th. They're playing 18th placed Darmstadt today in the Bundesliga. So this video, as I finish recording, is 40 minutes long. Now, people don't like me talking and rambling, but I think we've covered some good stuff today, and this is obviously for Saturday. There's plenty of games. Let me know which games you like the look of. Get your predictions in the comments. I'm really hoping we can hit 10,000 subscribers this weekend. I'm on about 9,700 or 800 at the moment. Hit like, hit subscribe if you do like and subscribe to this kind of content.